Joining us now, she just recently got promoted to the associate head coach at Illinois. Of course, was a Georgia Bulldog great player. I speak of Laura Trout. Joins us here on In the Circle. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Getting back into the routine. It was our first week of practice, so it's been pretty exciting.
Well, let's first start with that new title you've got, the associate head coach. What does that mean to you to kind of get rewarded there? That was recently just announced. What was your reaction as you kind of get that award, get that promotion?
It's exciting. It's great knowing that Tyra, you know, looks at me in a way that she sees that I'm worthy of it. I've been here with her for going on 7 years now, and we've been building this together. And Coach Lance has been here for 6 years with us, so we've all been building this together. And it just really shows that she has confidence in me to help continue keeping this thing going.
You have. I mean, since your arrivals, you've really become an NCAA tournament perennial team. I mean, you've made the tournament in 16, 17, 19. Just talk about the building blocks. You all, I mean, basically coming together basically and building this program on a yearly basis to now where the expectations are to make the NCAA tournament.
Absolutely, that's been our culture that we've been working to establish since we got here is making sure that every player we recruit, everyone on our roster has that expectation. It's NCAA tournament every year, or it's considered below our standard. And I think at this point, 6 years going on seven into it, you have that chance to have your players that really bought into it. They believe in it. They come here with that expectation. They work with that expectation, and that's the goal every year. NCAA tournament, working to be big, first time Big Ten champions here at Illinois. That's something that this program has never done. That's obviously a goal, but it takes time. And I mean, that's another thing. I'm thankful for Coach Perry for giving me this opportunity to be the associate head, but it's also the Illinois administration. They believe in what we're building here and helping us. And we have a new facility going up that is in our shadows of practice every day. That reminds us, that they've believed in us, and they're giving us what we need to keep this thing going as well.
What was it about Tyra Perry? We've had her on last year, obviously so impressive. What was it about her that you're like, this is the right person to work for?
Tyra is super driven. She has high expectations. There's always we're always working towards something. Say we check off a goal, something we've been working for, we're gonna keep building on that. And that's just that's my mentality as well. It's like, cool, we're in the NCAA tournament. Let's make sure that's every year, and then what? Let's win a regional. This program's never won a regional, so can we? Absolutely. So we align that way. We have very similar recruiting philosophy. We have very similar just standards and values when it comes to team culture. And I guess been together this long, the trust thing too. That's super important, and we know exactly what each other are thinking and doing and want to do.
And you have a stability of a coaching staff. You mentioned Lance McMahon, your pitching coach. 6 years too? So I mean, what does he bring to the table, and what does that mean to have that stability as a staff? Where in this era, where let's be real, there's a lot of coaching movement for positive reasons, and other reasons, as far as promotions and head coaching job, things like that. But yet, you all been able to stay together here and help build this program is the stability of it.
Absolutely. Lance brings a lot of knowledge. I mean, he's been at Missouri with early line and some of their great pitchers. Chelsea Thomas. He's been at LSU with Beth. Obviously, great pitchers have gone through there, so he has a lot of knowledge when it comes to what it takes to be a great pitcher. And then he's had the amount of years to recruit and develop pitchers into that, and I think we're on the right track, and he's done a great job with that.
Tyra Perry said in the press release that you're one of the top offensive minds. Let's talk about your offensive philosophy, because since you've been there, Illinois has been one of the top offenses in a normal year. We'll throw out the last 2 years, which have not been normal, which we'll get into, but from a off the field standpoint. But Since you've been there, you've been one of the top offenses in the Big Ten as well as in the country, especially in 2019, which was one of the top offenses in the country. What is your philosophy on the offense, and it's been worked so well that you've obviously run?
Well, I have to give a lot of credit to just I've come from. I have some Gerry Glasco background in me, some Lou obviously background in me, and you think about the offenses that those guys lead. It's aggressive. We want to hit the ball. We want to hit it hard. We want to hit it often, and so we recruit and we develop players that want to swing the bat and they want to swing it big. Um, but also, I mean, when you think about swinging it big, the strikeouts come with it, and we've done really well in that department as well as kind of minimizing them. Aside from the last 2 years we've had a really young team, a few years in a row, but putting the ball in play, hard consistently makes big things happen. And that's honestly where it starts. It's really that simple. We want to swing the bat. We want to swing the bat often. If you want to walk us, you want to hit us, we'll take it. But that's how we train. We train to swing the bat, and you give us something to hit, we want to drive it.
Let's talk about your journey. How did you, when you were growing up, what got you interested in playing softball? And then your journey to Georgia was fascinating. Just talk about that journey that got you to Athens. But what got you interested in softball and then your journey to Athens?
Well, I played baseball with my brother up until basically softball was my only option, I guess. And then I just always loved, I guess, just the diamond sports in general. I mean, you could have found me watching whatever Braves game, whatever was on TV. I was watching. I just always enjoyed watching baseball. And then when softball really started to come on TV, I was roughly kind of probably like 11 or 12 when we really started to see Cat Osterman and Monica Abbott and those guys really, on TV dealing. World Series was airing all the time, and it just was something at that point that I wanted to be a part of. I wanted to be in the World Series. So the rest of my journey kind of had that goal in mind. Wasn't heavily recruited out of high school. I think back then South Carolina wasn't really a heavily recruited state in general. It's getting so much better now, and that's awesome to see, especially now that you add Clemson to the mix. You got two, big programs in the state, so that's helped. But the options out of high school weren't anything that were going to help me get to the World Series, and that was my goal. So JUCO, Coach Polly, he believed in me, recruited me. We made it to a couple of JUCO World Series when I was there. That was exciting, and then that gave me, the extra chance to get recruited. And I think having somebody like Coach Polly, who was very respected in the game, helped me kind of get to Georgia. And I knew the time I committed to Georgia, they'd never been to a World Series. But I knew they were close. They were knocking on the door at a UCLA Super Regional every year. And I was like, I can help. I want to be a part of this. And it was my chance to, go to the World Series like I always wanted to do.
And you did. You're a part of that Georgia team in 2010. Get to the World Series. A lot of personalities on that team. You walked into there. Kristen Sandberg we've had on. We've had Megan Wiggins on. We've had on Elisa Goler on. Just talk about that group you kind of got to meet there, because you always are still to this day a very close bunch.
Absolutely. And that team was full of talent. When I came in as a junior, all of those kids, Sam was a year younger than us, but were all the same age as me, but they'd been there for a few years, and they were all Americans already, just talented, just top of the SEC in so many categories offensively. And coming there, I won't say I was intimidated, but I was excited. I was excited to learn. I was like, this Goler the year before, I think she hit 25 plus home runs and only struck out 5 times. Hopefully I didn't add a strikeout. She'll get mad at me when she does. But it was impressive. It was a World Series year. I mean, they played almost 60 something games and strike out that many times with that many home runs. So impressive. And so for me, I got to learn from these guys. I mean, Megan Wiggins, still one of the best hitters in the world. I'll debate anybody with that. Just practicing with those guys every day. How can you not get better? And that offense, that 2010 team was, and I think everyone had at least 5 home runs in the lineup. Just anybody could take you deep at any point. And there was some good pitching in the SEC then too. There was some incredible pitchers. I mean, Kelsey Dunn was dealing it. I mean, just so many great pitchers, and these guys were just, knocking the softball around the yard every day, and it was a incredible team, and personalities through, just no shortage of them. And that's to say something about Lou and Gerry and managing all the personalities. I mean, the fact of the matter is everybody was competitive and everybody wanted to win. And,
yeah, that's an understatement. Goler told me that when she was going in that home run barrage, they were like drug testing her because they thought she was on something there, and she laughed about that. Like, I mean, it was just kind of wild. Like, you guys, people are like, where is this team coming from?
Gerry and Lou, just their offensive minds, but then add in the talent that you have, like Schlope, Goler, Wiggins. Like, who's trying to face those your first 3 at bats? I think about it now, just, on the other side of it, that was a daunting lineup. I would have hated to pitch against them. I'm glad they were on my team.
Is Wiggins kind of, though, like showing you all up? Because she's still playing at a high level right now. Most of you have gone into coaching or doing other stuff. She's still playing. That's
because she's still, she still crushed the ball. She's still pretty ridiculous when it, I'm proud of her. I love being able to still watch her. I think the AU Sports is getting started here soon. I'm excited to watch her, and I know every person she plays with, if they're with an open mind, she's making them better too.
No doubt. Let me ask you about head coach Lou Harris-Champer. That was one of the big news this offseason. She announced her retirement literally, I think, the next day after they were done in the Women's College World Series. What was your reaction when you heard that Coach Champer decided to retire? Because that had to be an emotional moment there for you.
For sure. I mean, I was watching the World Series game just like everyone else was, and might have got like a screenshot from the Georgia Twitter, from somebody in our team group chat that we still have going, our Georgia Dogs group chat we still have rolling around. I was happy for her. That was my first reaction. I mean, she worked her tail off every single day, watching video, preparing, giving everything she had to whatever team she had on the field. And I mean, that's one reason you have kids that always play hard for her, because that she, sacrifices time at home with her kids to watch video, to make sure that her teams are prepared. And so for her to, go out at the World Series, took a team to the World Series, a super young team that nobody gave a shot. I'm just happy for her. It was sad, obviously. I was hoping that one day while I was coaching, I could make it back there and play, against one of her teams, just on the other side. But other than that, I mean, I'm happy for her. I'm happy that, the program's in Tony's hands now. Tony's a great person to have, lead it, continue Lou's legacy, but while building his own at Georgia. So just overall happy for her. Obviously, sad I won't get to see her across another dugout one day, but she's done so much for me.
You can invite her to some games now, though. That's
oh yeah. Oh yeah. She's earned some much deserved time with her family, time away.
That's true. That's true. What did you pick up from her that you use now in your coaching?
There's something about Coach Lou's just strategy mind that I knew I wanted to coach while I was playing, so I got to kind of take that in while I was a player as well. She knows so much about the game, and she's always learning about it as well. But just so much. I mean, to be a shortstop, you have to already have a high softball IQ, and still as a junior when I came there, I was still learning so much that helped me defensively. Make sure the game never sped up on me, just because, I mean, coming from JUCO to SEC, it could if you let it, but she prepared us because, I mean, she just strategy wise knew whoever we're playing probably better than they knew themselves. Prepared us for whoever we're playing, and that's a lot of that stuff is what I use. I do whatever I can to make sure our team has every bit of information so that we can go into it prepared, and I get that from her.
That team, going back to that 2010 team, there's a lot of coaches on that team now. Moving forward, you're obviously in coaching. Kristen Sandberg's been in coaching. You obviously Elisa Goller now, head coach at Western Illinois. Katie Rickovic was on that team. She's a coach over there as well at Ole Miss. I think Erin Aravalo's into coaching as well. I think Brianna what was it about that team? And I wonder, Lou has to be a part of this, right? Where you all just got influenced to get into coaching a little bit, right? A little passion.
Absolutely. You see somebody who works her tail off day in and day out for your success, so that you can be the best player you can be in your 4 years. There is something about that really like makes you want to give back, be that for somebody else if possible. I mean, if I could give anyone half of what Lou did for me as a coach, then that would make it all worth it. Just each practice with her, you're learning something. You're taking something in. It's not, you're not just going through the motions. It's not just, you're learning something. You're getting so much. And it's not just X's and O's, hitting the drop ball. It's not just that. It's the toughness that prepared us for whatever, life, even if those of us who aren't coaches. I know we have a few nurses that are probably, that we played with that are just, the past year have been in it. And I like to think that the practices and just the mental toughness shaping that Lou, her practices prepared us, like that had us ready for anything. So it's probably a little bit of that. It's, you see this coach come to practice every day prepared, given everything she has for us. Why wouldn't you want to at least give back in some way, or hopefully do half of what she can do for her players?
Yeah, I would say so. We're speaking with associate head coach at Illinois, Laura Trout, here on In the Circle. What kind of player were you, for those that didn't see you play? Some people got to see you play last year when the NCAA aired some of the Georgia games from the World Series that during that time. I know Kristen Sandberg, when we had her on, she was like pushing for that, and she was saying y'all were group chatting and things like that. But describe what kind of player were you, and if Laura Trout, the player, was in the same room with Coach Trout, how would that relationship be?
As a player, it's funny because Coach Perry talks about this all the time. She talks about that 2010 team. She calls us the Detroit Pistons of softball. And I was scrappy. I'm, as shortstop, I think that's why, maybe a little bit of why Lou loved, hopefully she loved having me on her team, is I was going to, be as tough as I could be out there. I was going to give everything I had, because that's what that team demanded. That was that team's expectations, that team's culture. Everyone was giving it 100% for Georgia when they stepped on that field. And for me, it was easy. I looked around, we were super close. We're still close. We worked hard with each other in the weight room. We worked hard, and it was easy to just give 100% for everyone next to us. And whether, if you think about it, those, like the personalities on that team, I was actually probably the mildest. And if you ask,
so you're the Joe Dumars. You're the Joe Dumars then.
Probably. But if you ask some of my JUCO teammates, they would be surprised, because I was, the intense one, the one that was, taking the extra base, sliding hard. But, in Georgia, I was probably the compared to those guys who were running the bases, taking everything. I was probably the more, I don't want to say timid, but I was probably the more laxed one, like the not as in your face type thing. And because those guys played hard, and that's something that I love when I have players that play hard, taking those extra bases, sliding in, putting pressure on teams. Like that's the player that I hoped I was, and that's the player that I like, that we look for here, that we're trying to coach. And that's what I was surrounded with on that team.
You said you wanted to get in, you knew you wanted to get into coaching as you were playing. You joined the Georgia staff as a student coach, right? And
Oh, yeah.
that was Lou Harris was the head coach. Jerry was on the staff, and was Tony on the staff as a volunteer? Was or at that time or?
Yep. Tony was a volunteer my senior year and then my 5th year as well. So that was when I got to play for Tony as well. And
Wow.
Jerry was there, yeah. And Tara was the pitching coach my 5th year.
Describe all of them being around them, because I gotta believe that's not a lot of young players come, in their last year and as they get into coaching can be around those type of coaches. I mean, you're talking head coaches, future head coaches there. You got to be around.
Just a bunch of brilliant minds. And I mean, competitive as anything. Just so much softball IQ, so much, offensive power minded people. I mean, it was cool. It was cool. I mean, just as a 5th year, like I said, I always wanted to get into coaching, so I'm soaking up everything I can. But to get, advice, to be able to be mentored by those guys who are, Tony head coach, Jerry's a head coach now, Tara's a head coach now. I mean, those are some of the especially young, and that's technically that would be my first year coaching. Just young in your coaching career, to be around those guys, it really shapes kind of what kind of coach you want to be. I mean, Jerry is the coach that believes in, he believes in every player that he ever brings on. And he reminds you how good you are every day. And at the same time, he's teaching you so much. I always tell people that when I got to Georgia, I was a swinger, and they all of those guys made me hitter. And it comes from their mind, their softball minds, always taking information in, always, gathering data. I know Jerry's whiteboard, when I would come in his office, would be covered with just who knows what it was going on there, but it was just covered in, his thoughts and, like lineups and, win losses for certain lineups and, people's batting averages at certain parts of the lineup. Just, the stuff that a lot of analytic people's type do now, but he was just kind of doing it. So, I mean, just that type of stuff. You just see people working hard all the time. And you see what it takes. You see what it takes to be great in this profession. And you see what it takes to be at their level. And that really, sits with you 10 years ago almost now. Every day I carry a little bit of, each of them while I do my job.
No doubt. You paid your dues. Obviously, you started out at Georgia as a student coach. You would be a volunteer assistant at South Carolina for a couple seasons over there under Beverly Smith. In the meantime, you were also a head coach of the Southern Force 18U Gold team for a year. You then went to be an assistant at George Washington for a couple years before Illinois. Just talk about that, paying your dues there in the journey. You didn't take shortcuts. And I've always, heard from when I've had coaches on that they enjoy that path of going to different places and getting to get different ideas and things like that into where they ultimately end up in the present. Just describe that journey as you kind of starting in your coaching career.
Well, I think anytime you have a few years where you're not getting paid, you have to love it. And I did. I got to be in my home state for a little bit. And I got to work around Bev and Lisa Navis. And it's just, you really learned whether you love it or not, I think, at that point when you're not getting paid, but the days are still just as long. And you don't really think about not getting paid. You think about, your path. This is part of my path. This is part of my journey. And then even going to George Washington and DC, I mean, I think that perspective is really important. I got to work with high academic minded kids. And that's just a different type of athlete, high academic mind, a lot of thinkers. And I think that really, really prepared me for Big Ten. Big Ten is high academic. We pride ourselves on that. We pride ourselves on being high academic, but also, being able to perform on the field at a high level as well. And I think the SEC path, playing, coaching a little bit, and then being at George Washington with the high academic really, really prepared me for the Big Ten and this job. And along the way, you work with different coaches. You find out what style you like, and you find out what style you may not like. You find out a lot about yourself, and you just really, really learn. Just how to be professional, how to be a professional coach, and it's not just going to the office, going to practice. It's a lot more. It's a full-time job. It's a lot. It's a lot, and you have to love it. But it's so rewarding getting to work with a new set of athletes every year.
How did you meet Tyra Perry? How did that kind of combo begin?
I actually didn't know her until she interviewed me for this job. But
wow.
If you ask her, when she was looking to fill this position, when she first got hired at Illinois, she kept hearing my name when she was asking her friends. She was looking to fill the spot, kept asking around. She said she kept hearing my name, so she gave me a call. And actually, it's a funny story. She called me. I just got back from recruiting at some mid-Atlantic event. I can't remember, and it was a grind. I drove 6 hours, so I was just about to put my head down for a little nap because I've been driving all night. And I got a call from an unknown number, and it was Coach Perry, and we talked a lot. I think we really just kind of clicked from there. And then on my interview, I think we really clicked, and we're always just talking the game nonstop. I think that's that part, like, she enjoys. I'm always going to, if I disagree, we talk about it, and I think she really enjoys that because it is the different ideas from different perspectives and different paths. And I think that's why embracing your coaching past and your coaching path is important, because it brings you to, different ideas and things like that to get the job done.
No doubt. And immediate success. You make the tournament in 16, 17, 19. End up in the Lexington Regional each time. I asked Coach Perry about that last year, and she kind of smirked about the same location. She joked that, yeah, we have the GPS. We know that track very well. But for your program though, at the same time she said that was a big deal though to make the tournament. At that time, you weren't thinking, hey, we're going back to the same place. You're just thinking we're back in the tournament. We're building something here in a regional there. What was that like for you to make that immediate impact and make the tournament as a coach after making the tournament as a player?
I will say that first year I think that one's going to stick with me probably for the rest of my career, just because you had a room full of kids that had never got to see their name called on the selection show. They've never seen their school's name pop up. So to be in that room and with them and to see their team's name pop up for the first time, that really sticks with you. Similar thing happened at South Carolina my first year as a volunteer. It was their first time in a long time, and those memories I think go a long way. But it also really set the tone. This is what we're about. This is what we can do. If we work hard, we put our minds to it, and that really started the culture shift. And getting, we have on our wall at the field, it has the years that we've gone to regionals, pushing to make sure that there's never a gap in those years. But also, let's add another column. A super regional, Big Ten champion, things like that.
That was part of a run there. Your offense hit over 300 every year, as I mentioned. One of the best offenses in the Big Ten, among the best offenses in the country. You had players like Carly Thomas, for example, and Nicole Evans. Thomas just made news, I think, this offseason. Just became a head coach over at Southwest Baptist head coach. What was it like to have players like her, who was also a great defensive player, because you also coached the infield, for those that may not be aware of. You also had great defenses. What was it like to have players like a Thomas, like an Evans, and others to help to run that offense?
I think that's where we talk about, my Georgia team and all those personalities. That's where what these offensive hitters were like, and different personalities, different styles. If you watch their swings, none of them have the same swing. Nicole Evans, Carly Thomas, Annie Fleming, Kiana Sherlin, we had a girl named Veronica Rulius. Just these kids could absolutely crush the ball. and none of them had the same style. So watching them practice every day was something that I really, really enjoyed. And those, that 1 through 5 in a lineup reminded me a lot of our Georgia 1 through 5, just with the different personalities, the different styles. Depending on the day, each one of them could be, the threat. You had to pick your poison with them. But I got to watch those guys really develop. Our first year, Carly was a sophomore. I think Nicole Evans was a sophomore. So we really got to watch them develop as hitters over the next few years. And it was that 2017 season, they really, really took off. And our numbers were incredible. And even that 2019 season, they had pretty ridiculous numbers. And I think that was the most exciting part, is watching their path as hitters, their development, each year learning something a little bit different, adding to their game. Because if we're being honest, hitting is, that's never a job that's done. Becoming a better hitter, that's every day you got to clock in and put the work in. And they did, and those guys, and like I said, they're completely different swings. If you watch them, none of them look the same. Maybe some of them might even look a little, different to what you would think a great hitter looks like. And I think they really appreciated that we let them be themselves as hitters. But also they took in a lot of the things that we had to offer, a lot of the information that we had, just from our coaching past and our experience.
No doubt. And now you've got one, Carly's going to be a head coach. I would assume you and Tyra are real proud. Did you both give her any advice that she's now becoming a coach?
Carly calls often. She's I think we both probably have given our fair share of advice. She's excited about it. She's excited about, getting her a shot to lead. And I mean, we're proud of her. I think the advice comes whenever Carly calls. We're happy to help. And I think she's learning as she goes as well. I mean, she's still young. Coach Perry was young when she became a head coach, so she has someone great to call.
Last couple of years been unique because obviously you had so many great players that graduate. And I remember 2020 you had a young team. That season gets abruptly shut down in March. Obviously with COVID, we've all been dealing with that. But with you and many of the Big Ten program, it's been a unique last couple of years because you had the 2020 year cut short. Hardly any fall in 2020 to work with like you do now. And then you get to your season, you're playing conference only. No non-conference games. You start the season in Leesburg, Florida, and then you play a conference only schedule, no conference tournaments. Like, just describe the last 2 years and from a development standpoint, because in your case, you had a lot of young players who are trying to work with, and yet you're trying to develop it in this unusual circumstances that's not ideal. Not to mention you can't even recruit it in person during this time. So like for this year, there's probably some new kids that you're coming in that you haven't really had interaction in person in a long time.
It's obviously been a challenge. That 2019 class, we graduated a lot. We talked about that was a talented class. So 2020 class was young, a lot of inexperience. We had a pretty nice schedule before everything shut down. I think people forget that we were 3-0 against the SEC with that young team, but we also took some young type team losses. But we didn't get to that class, that freshman class that a lot of them started in 2020. They didn't get to play Big Ten schedule. And I think you get a lot of experience. You get a lot of growth from playing those 3-game series. You got the team that just saw you yesterday, and then they're going to see you today. And then by Sunday, they know a lot about you. So you have to be able to make those adjustments. And that's part of your growth as a hitter or just a softball player in this sport. And they didn't get that experience. But nobody did in 2020. So for the most part, they were on the same page as everyone else. It's just, as from the natural development process, there's a lot of, blanks and things that we didn't get to do. And then to go from no Big Ten to only Big Ten in 2021, it was, it's, you think about it almost being like, all right, now we don't have any games where nobody knows us, where it's just one game, see what happens. It's 4 games against one team. And that's challenging because in this sport, anything can happen on game 4. Anything can happen on game 3. It's, sometimes, especially later in the season when there's just so much information and so much, scouting reports and everyone just is super familiar with you. I think essentially we had 2 years of, a freshman class, and then they were freshmen again, kind of. It was what it felt like, and they were still learning. So then, this year we will finally have a pretty mature team with experience. But now we're adding in a class that, like you said, we haven't really seen play, recruiting wise, and things like that. But again, everyone's in that same boat. Pretty much everyone. It was tough mentally for our players and just in general to kind of watch everyone else get to play everyone else while we were, just in our little Big Ten world. And then it didn't do us any favors RPI wise, which everyone knows. I think our annoyance with that and our frustrations with that have, it is what it is. That's the hand we were dealt. We still had chances to kind of, maybe put ourselves in position. But, I think it gives them perspective for this season.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of had your hands tied behind your back, all of you in the Big Ten from that standpoint. And, I've said it on the show, and I even told the committee chairperson about this. Basketball got rid of the RPI, yet softball and other sports are still using it. Doesn't make a ton of sense in that regard. So I wonder if maybe moving forward, somebody at the higher ups above our pay raise can kind of come up with something. It is kind of weird because you're a sports fan like I am. I follow you social media, and basketball got rid of the RPI. To me, that should be a red flag that if basketball doesn't think the RPI is good enough, why are we kind of using it? And I thought, honestly, the Big Ten kind of had no room for error, unfortunately. It was kind of a thin margin because people didn't know how to kind of rate it. And it was almost like, well, if you separate yourself from the conference, you're probably going to get in. But this league is too tough to separate yourselves. I remember that watching your series against Iowa. You're battling for 4th place because you just don't know. Hey, maybe they get 4 in, but you really don't know. Whereas if you had a normal year, you probably would have been in because you usually play a tough non-conference schedule. You would have added some wins. So it's unfortunate. What did you learn as a staff about your team going through that, though? Because that's a unique year. That hopefully we don't go through that again. But what did you learn about your team that you could hope that pays off this upcoming year?
I think they did gain a lot of perspective. I know, when February rolled around and we got to play, they were excited. We were playing in Florida for a couple of weeks. That was exciting. Getting away from the snow for a little bit. That was exciting. They played really well. They played like they were excited. They played like, they got their season taken away the season before. So I think that perspective really helped. But we learned that we have to keep that, that perspective in front and center. Can't forget about it, even though the grind of, a Big Ten only season kind of wears you down. We kind of saw that. We kind of saw the wear mentally of, just not in-person classes, Zoom in classes all day, but also still having to take exams. We saw that there's that mental wear of having to get up and test every other day bright and early. We saw that, but I think, again, the perspective that they've gained this year, hopefully when they start to get things back to normal, they'll look back and be like, well, it can be taken away. It can be made even more difficult than it needs to be or has to be. And so let's play ball. Let's enjoy this because I think any former player knows that even after that first year, when you're done playing, you get so much perspective. These athletes, across the country have something that none of us ever had, and that was a season taken away from them. And that's a perspective that they get to have, and they get to, choose how to run with it and fuel them. So it'll be interesting to see how this season plays out and just the mentality, the, appreciative, are they going to appreciate a normal season? We'll see. I was impressed with just the mental toughness that it took to get last season, under the belt. Again, with the testing protocols and, watching everyone else play other people. Even for that first week when we weren't playing and everyone else was, that was a mental challenge.
Oh, that's right, because you started a week later. You're right. So that had to be bizarre for you throughout your career in coaching. You're used to just playing, and here you are this opening weekend that's normal, and you are sitting.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's wild. Let's talk about this year's team. Obviously, you mentioned you got a week of practice. Talk about some of the players coming back. I know, and what your expectations are that people can be on the lookout for, both from a leadership standpoint and from a production standpoint.
I think I have to start with our pitching staff. We have a pitching staff that's going to be, they're going to be vets, extremely talented, some big wins throughout their career. And now they are technically, seniors. So they got that 4 years, got that experience, got that perspective we've been talking about. And all of the Addie Jarvis, Sydney Sickles, they have big wins. I mean, Addie beat Missouri, right? Our last game before we shut down in 2020, Addie beat Missouri, and Sid closed it out. So those two together, taking down a really good Missouri team on a neutral site, that had to give them some kind of confidence. And then also the two Michigan wins. They beat Michigan, but between the two of them, some Northwestern wins. So they have big wins to draw from that I think will really, really kind of fuel them and show them that they're talented and keep us moving forward. And then, at the plate, we have a fifth year, Bella Loya, who's really kind of been a staple in our lineup for the past 4 years. She has a unique opportunity to be a fifth year, kind of leading the way. And then the youth that we talked about, the freshmen from 2020 that didn't get their full season, they got their season last year, kind of got some Big Ten experience under their belt. Delaney Rummel. Delaney's a star at the plate, in the field. She's super talented. Now she has some experience. We had a redshirt freshman in center field. She was a first team all freshman Big Ten, and Jay Vick. So we'll be excited to see. And then we even get some stars back. Danny Davis, she hurt her shoulder right before season started last year, so she missed the whole season. But she finished that 2020 season with a couple of grand slams against big teams. So we really got some star power back in our lineup with experience now. So I'm really excited about that. Avery Steiner, that's just an absolute, just the backbone of our infield defense, but also leads us off, sets the table. We count on Avery to find her way on base and really get us going. I'm really excited about the experience that this team has.
Yeah, I mean, Rummel was third on your team. I mean, last year you were led by, Steiner was your leading hitter. You had Kaylee Powell and Rummel. They were your top three hitters there, and they all hit over 300. Vickery hit over 300. Loyal was right on the cusp at 284 against Big Ten pitching, which was strong last season there. But you also are among the best defensively, and that's the thing. You coach the defense. You also coach the infield, I should say. How do you balance that out, the infield? What's the key to having a successful infield defensively?
That comes from some Lou, just some Lou in me. I really challenge them at practice. I give them, we have high standards. Our infield mentality is we have our pitchers back no matter what. We're catching the ball, we're throwing at a high level, and at the end of the day, we're having our pitchers back, and that's kind of the mentality that they play with. And we were pretty young last year on the infield, and I think this year we got that experience back. We bring in a transfer, Megan Ward. She was all A10, first team, second team, one of those. But just, talented at all four positions in the infield, and I'm really excited about just the stability that they bring, kind of with the experience returning.
You mentioned Ward. Talk about some of the new faces as you'll get to know as you practice in the fall, but you kind of think could contribute right away here and help this team.
Yeah, bringing all A10 player in, that's really exciting, especially shortstop. She'll have a chance to compete for that spot. We'll return a junior in Miranda Gallardo. She finished the season at shortstop. So we'll have some healthy competition to kind of fill that spot. And I think that competition is what's going to really breed, the competitiveness, the success, the talent. So it's going to come to the top for us. KP at first, we talked about her bat. She really, really was rock solid for us at first. I don't think she made a single error there, which was a lot of growth for her. From her first season at first, she made a few, and she's been really kind of, a big star for us.
First team all defense, first team all conference. What's the ceiling for her?
The sky's the limit for KP. She was actually committed to George Washington when I was there, and then was for whatever reason decommitted. So she was looking for a home. I knew she can compete in the Big Ten, and she was one of the ones that I, in recruiting at George Washington, like this kid's talented. This kid can do, like I said, the sky's the limit for her, and she's really shown that. She's developed really, really, nicely. She's put the work in. And the sky is the limit for her. I think, as everyone had, the limits from the 2020 season being cut short. She's one who really, I think, took that perspective and ran with it. For her, she came out hot 2021 season, came out with a bang, and then really led the way.
They definitely did that in a lot of ways on a high level. Couple last things before we let you go. You're a big sports fan.
Absolutely.
Because I see you tweet a lot about sports there. Just talk. What's your favorite? You say you love baseball.
Love baseball.
Who's your favorite team?
I'm a big Red Sox fan.
Oh.
And everyone always wonders why. And it's because when I was, like I said, I would watch any game that was on when I was younger. I did not like the Yankees. I thought, I don't know, just a more of an underdog type mentality, I guess. And I knew they had like one of the biggest payrolls, so I just didn't like them growing up. And when the Yankees were beating them 3-0, I believe it was 2004.
Yeah.
And the Red Sox came back and won the ALCS. I just remember watching every game, at my house when I was little, just taking it all in. And I was a huge Big Papi fan. I love his hitting mentality. Just loved watching him hit. So I guess from there, I just became a big Red Sox fan. Dustin Pedroia. They've had just a bunch of players that I just really enjoyed watching. But if we're talking about baseball, I love watching any player that's great. I mean, the Cubs for a few years here were awesome to watch. They had their fire sale. So luckily the White Sox have taken over and given us something to watch. But
yeah, no, I could imagine that. All right. How many times when you've traveled, over the years here and recruited or playing on the field, do you get asked, hey, are you related to Mike Trout? Like, do you know Mike Trout, et cetera, et cetera? How often?
All the time, especially when I'm at PGF, when I check in a hotel.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, yeah, Mike Trout's letting his cousin stay at the Marriott, not the, not the Four Seasons.
Oh man, that's a good line. That's funny. Yeah, that's good. That could help you though in California. Maybe get to sort of, I know Mike. Yeah, I'm related to Mike Trout. Oh, come in, right? I mean, in Anaheim.
Come on in.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty wild. Then you watch the football too. I see you tweet about football.
I do. I like football. I love football. Football and baseball are probably my two go-tos other than softball, and then volleyball. I really enjoy volleyball.
Volleyball. Where did the volleyball come from?
Being here in Illinois, our volleyball team is pretty good, and Big Ten volleyball is really good. And there's just something about it's just really impressive to me. I'm a sports fan, so when I see impressive athletes hanging over that net, just smacking the ball, it's hard to not watch.
Very, very, very true. Very true. Big time in volleyball as well. Their last question. What's going to be the keys as you work now in practice and the team gets to gel and things like that? What are going to be some of the things and keys to accomplish between now and February to get closer to accomplishing your goals that you'll have on the field once the season starts?
We have to set our bar high. Make sure that expectations are communicated. But they can't just come from the coaching staff. Our players, you know, they have high standards, and then creating that consistency of where our standards are never compromised every day at practice. You know, whether it's we're 4 weeks in and everyone's tired. January grind, we're in the indoor, we're inside because there's snow on the ground. You're tired of being inside for 4 weeks. The, you know, the end is near, season's close. We can't compromise our standards. We can't, let ourselves get mentally fatigued. We just gotta keep working, especially, like they say, if you want something you never had, you gotta push and do things you've never done. And that's this team's mentality has to be along those lines. And they came back. A lot of them stayed over the summer. They came back with that mentality. So we're excited about it.
Well, we're excited about that. Fall practice is beginning, and before we know it, the season will be around the corner, and we're excited for you. A lot of people reached out when you got the announcement came about your promotion, and they were excited about it for you, happy for you. I saw Kat Osterman was tweeting about it, and everybody. So I know that had to mean a lot to you, that a lot of your peers were very happy for you. So congratulations on that. Congrats on the success you've had to this point, and we wish you more success moving forward. Thanks for joining us here and taking the time. I know it's a busy time, and congrats, and we hope to do this again down the road.
Of course, anytime, Eric. Thank you.